There we go. Cool, thanks everybody. Yeah, let's pick things off, otherwise we're going to run too late, and I prefer to have more time for some networking afterwards, so let's try and save some time now. So welcome everybody. Sure, thanks for coming out tonight. It's raining, which Durban is in, so it means Durban doesn't usually come out. So I'm glad you guys are here, so thanks for that. Yeah, for those of you who don't know who SA Crypto is, we are a platform, a community, which we have built over the last year and a half, which our vision is to be the provider of credible information, blockchain information amongst our communities. So just to give you a little bit of history, Sean Ritson in the middle over there, he started SA Crypto about a year and a half ago. And he kind of started these communities on WhatsApp amongst some peers and some friends, and these kind of just grew, and we started seeing that there was actually a need for credible crypto information and use in South Africa. So what we did is we started expanding because WhatsApp got too big, and we moved to Telegram, and we just started building from there. And at the beginning of this year, James, who's doing our first talk, he decided that he has a passion for this sort of stuff and wants to take SA Crypto to the next level. So he is full-time at SA Crypto, and part of our vision, bigger picture, is to have events like these across South Africa, and then one day across the world, and show them that South Africa knows about crypto, and we providing the information, and just give them an insight into what crypto is all about. It's not just crypto, there's blockchain, and there's all these other projects that we're going to learn about, and we need to make sure that we're educating people, because there's a lot of crap out there, and we want to make sure that the people are getting the right information. So about a month ago we launched our website, sacrypto.co.za, and what SA Crypto website is, it's a portal of news information, but news information that's put together by people like you and me, and made it to make it understandable for people to read. It's not high-tech stuff, it's just information that we can all learn about. So yeah, I think if you guys haven't checked out our SA Crypto website, go take a look. We continuously building on that and updating on that. So we've got two speakers tonight, James, who I already mentioned, and then Gareth, who I'll introduce a little bit later. But as I said earlier, James is heading up SA Crypto now. He's taken the leap and has decided to become our leader, CEO. I don't know, we don't call him now. We don't really have a name for him yet, but we're calling him James. And James is working on building this brand, and he's got quite a bit of history around him. I'm not sure if he's going to let himself introduce his history, but he's got a lot of media history around him. He was once even a pastor, so the stage is very familiar to him, Pastor James. Maybe that's a good name, there we go, Pastor James. Pastor Crypto James. So he he did some stuff at ECR. You might even hear, if you tune in late one night, you might even hear James on the radio. Early one morning, you might hear him on the radio. So he's got a lot of media history, but he's also got passion about blockchain and Bitcoin, and started many years ago just reading up about the blockchain, reading up about crypto, and being involved actually from within the church, got to travel around the world to many places, saw poverty, and started realizing that there's a bigger thing to this Bitcoin thing, and you know, like, how can we change people's lives? Not in any funny way, but just how can we use Bitcoin and blockchain to change people's lives? So that is a passion of James's. He has been doing talks. He's been invited to talks across the country recently, actually, to do a talk at UCT. So yeah, I want to introduce James. I've become quite good friends with James over the last couple of months, and I've learned a lot from James. So if we can give it up for James and let him come and give us some insight into his blockchain and Bitcoin knowledge.
And let's just give it up for Mark. Mark has introduced himself. He's the man behind the website. Like, literally, I can look at the website and be like, no, this needs to change, we need to do that, and we need to do, and he just miraculously finds a way. I could spend all day trying to fix something, and he will spend half an hour and it's done. So Mark is the brains behind our databases, our websites, our communications portals, our podcasts, everything that is technical. He is the man. So Mark, dude, we appreciate you, bro. And the sooner you can get off those golden handcuffs and come be full-time, the better, eh? He knows what I'm talking about. So how's it, guys? I better start the timer, or else we're all going to be way over time, and we want to respect your time. So apologies, we're a bit late. Mark's right, I'm very familiar with churches, and I should have guessed that using a church hall, we were going to battle with a projector that is nice and bright. So, unfortunately, we're running around. Big thanks to Prevent Ready from Kotaro, who loaned us a projector, but it was too little, too late, unfortunately. And so I hope you can read what I'm about to present to you, because blockchain requires big pictures and lots of diagrams, and this is what you are stuck with. All right. So I hope it works. If it doesn't, my apologies. Raise your hand if you can't read that, just so that I can see out of interest what the title is. You can be honest, please be honest and say, no, I actually can't read that. Derek, you can read it. Okay, so guys can see that it says blocked, chain smoking the Kool-Aid. Okay. So if you can remember my talk tonight, that's the title, blocked, chain smoking the Kool-Aid, all right? I'm sure you've all had an experience where you've been blocked by someone on Twitter, Facebook, whatever the case is. I've been blocked by David Warner, the cricketer, right, from Australia. If there's one person that I'm happy to be blocked by, it's him. I only found out the other day, after the whole sandpaper scandal, I literally was like, I'm going to tweet this guy. He blocked me. And I figured out, it was like when South Africa was last in Australia, I was having a go at him, and he obviously was like, nah, mate, block. So we're all familiar with blocking and what have you. And now we have this new block on the block, the blockchain. Then we're chain smoking the Kool-Aid. And why have I used these metaphors? Well, because if you're anything like me, when you get into something that's so revolutionary, you get addicted to it. You can't stop reading about it. My wife, my amazing, incredible wife who's here tonight, she will know and tell you that every night I'm on Twitter scrolling and going down the rabbit hole, reading the next article, just reading about blockchain. It all started, Mark's right, he's 100% right, it all started reading about economics and the various impacts of how the big banks have completely affected society, and greedy capitalism have messed up what is meant to be a bright future. And that was like a good 7 or 8 years ago, around about the time of the financial crash. Comes from my time in the ministry, working with the poorest of the poor, and just seeing the inequality, you know, the wage gap between some of the rich people in Hillcrest who literally are living in their beautiful gated estates if you live in Cotswold Downs, I'm really happy for you. I'd love to have a home there. But in their beautiful place in Cotswold Downs, and over the fence is a dude who is living underneath a piece of sheet metal that he found on the side of the road. Like, we're talking a stone's throw away. How does this work? What the heck? And then, of course, the financial crash, and I just got reading, and I'm a philosopher at heart, and I was like, there's something very wrong with the fabric of society. And so I became addicted to, when I read the Bitcoin white paper and understood what Bitcoin stood for and what Satoshi Nakamoto stood for, I couldn't stop. So hence the chain smoking. And then the Kool-Aid. When you drink the Kool-Aid, you are convinced. I mean, how many of us have blocked some Facebook multi-level marketer who just can't stop telling you, buy this, my package, it is amazing, Bitcoin is going to change the world, please buy my package, sign up for my contract, and if you sign up for my contract, then you can get more people under you. If you block them, then you immediately join the inner circle of SA Crypto. If you are one of those people, I hope that you will be changed. But the reality is when you get it, it's like the Kool-Aid, right? You become so biased towards Bitcoin and blockchain that you can't see anything else, which is dangerous. Let's be honest. We need to be very objective in our approach to the technology that is blockchain, right? There's Hashgraph now coming onto the scene. People are calling it DLT technology instead of blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, etc., etc. Had a great talk with one of our execs, our mining guys. Luke, who unfortunately is not here, he's on a plane to Estonia right now. Luke is a genius. He was literally introduced to me like this. Mark calls me up, James, I have a genius, you need to talk to this guy. That was how Luke Vanetti got introduced to me. And he is literally a genius. You talk to him. And so we were having a chat, and I was like, dude, what do you think, man? Should we be calling it blockchain? You know, we're trying to brand it, say crypto. Is it blockchain? Is it the blockchain community? Do we go with crypto? What's the deal? Crypto assets, cryptocurrency, digital assets, where are we going? And he was like, you know what? He's seen that people are just adopting the term blockchain as an overarching term for the industry. So, you know, whether it's distributed ledger, whether it's blockchain, whatever the case is, it does look like blockchain's here to stay as a term, right? But it's a Kool-Aid. Once you're in, you're like, this is going to change the world. But let's try and stay objective. And that's what I try and do. And that's what SA Crypto is about. SA Crypto as a news platform, as an information provider, is really, let's keep this as unbiased and as subjective as possible, right? Let's be careful in how we present info. So that's the title of my talk, and I'm probably already halfway through. So, I'm going to show you a little picture here. When the clicker works. Nazi, I don't know if you can, are we good to go? I am clicking. No problem. How many of you like Disney movies? 3 of you. Okay. I would have expected a better response than that. But, talk about Kool-Aid, I got into Disney stuff very early on. Just purely, I watched Aladdin and it just rocked my world. And then I got into Disney and I understood his history and the story of Mickey Mouse. I think it was Mortimer Mouse originally. And then the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and all the Oscars had won and the breakthrough technology. And then I got into Walt Disney's philosophy. Has anybody read into Walt Disney's philosophy towards life? It literally, I promise you, I was on my couch one day reading Wikipedia stuff about Walt Disney's philosophy, a city he had created called Utopia. Reading this stuff crying, literally, just weeping at his ideas. So he had planned, he had now become super wealthy, lots of leverage, he could use his power and influence, and he had a plan to create what he called the Epcot, right? It is the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And it was literally a demarcated area in Florida whereby people could purchase property and get in on board a brand new city. He was going to build a brand new city outside of municipal regulations of the state. They were going to be completely independent from the state of Florida. And they had ideas of universal basic income even way back then. They were talking about ride sharing, vehicle sharing, reusing everything, just a completely futuristic approach to how a city should run, self-sustaining, povertyless, crimeless society. And he was going to call it, it was at the time, the prototype was called Epcot. Then unfortunately he died, and the Walt Disney Company scrapped the idea. They're like, this is too big, which I found interesting because it's amazing how a man has a vision, people get behind that. That man goes and all of a sudden things collapse. Like seriously, Apple, I love Apple, and I wish I could afford an iPhone XS right now, but I don't know how long they're going to be what they were. They're probably never going to be what they were, let's be honest. And I just find that interesting. Anyway, that's for free. But what Disney did to honor his legacy, they created an Epcot section at Disney World in Florida. And they got this guy, Robert McCall, to draw a mural, to paint a mural. It took him 9 months to paint. And this mural was about the future. And he painted this incredibly artistic interpretation of civilization from right at the dawn of time, right the way through to what our future looks like. And it was an incredible feat as a picture. The painting itself was probably bigger than this entire stage. And they placed this at the end of the Epcot exhibits in Disney World. And it was all about where we're going as society. And I prescribe to the idea of abundance. A theory introduced by Peter Diamandis, the guy who invented or introduced the X Prize, the guys who are now going into space, creating paid passenger flights into space. And Peter Diamandis introduced this idea of abundance, which means that there are enough resources in society to have every single person on the planet live a happy life. In essence, that's in a nutshell what abundance means. Everybody can be happy. Everybody can have access to a basic education, good health care, a basic income, shelter, protection, all the basic human rights. Everyone should and everyone can. That's the idea of abundance. And so Peter Diamandis, this medical doctor, literally rocket scientist, has devoted his life to proposing this idea that we should be living in an abundant society. And people like Robert McCall, the painter of that mural, Walt Disney, they could see that in the future there will be a time where poverty doesn't exist, crime doesn't exist. There will be a time where we are living in abundance. And you can understand, this is kind of the root of my philosophy. I start getting into blockchain and I start to see, now you've got the internet, you've got smartphones, you've now got blockchain technology. All of a sudden, the pieces start falling into place and I'm going, holy cow, this is incredible. So this is my angle on Bitcoin and blockchain. I honestly believe that blockchain technology is going to be an underlying technology, whether it's distributed ledger, whether it's the immutability of the database, whatever angle of the blockchain that Satoshi Nakamoto introduced, whatever that is, I believe that the technology is going to be an underlying foundation for that abundant society. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. So, with that introduction, let me take you through. Folks, some of you are going to be bored at this point, if you're not already, my apologies. But I'm going to take you through I'm going to try my best to give you an overarching view of what blockchain is, okay? If I come across, no, I don't want to say that because I certainly am not. What I want to start out by saying before I get into all this technical stuff is, very, very, very few people are experts in this technology. So if anyone says they're an expert, they're not. Unless they are like a computer scientist, who is on a Hal Finney sort of level, one of the Bitcoin inventors, then, maybe. But very few people who are experts will proclaim themselves as experts. And even those that have proclaimed themselves as experts who you think might be, you start to realize actually they're crazy. Hashtag Roger Ver. Etc. So, I'm going to take you through just the basics of what is Bitcoin, what is blockchain. And so if you know this stuff, hopefully it gives you a little new light bulb moment. You're like, oh, okay, wow, that makes sense. And every time I do a talk, I spend hours going through new stuff, and I'm like, oh gosh, and then you start getting further into it, and you're like, my gosh, I'll never, ever, I don't think I'll ever comprehend this stuff, but I want to. So, 31st of October 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, a guy, a girl, a team, I personally think it was a team because in the Bitcoin white paper he refers to himself as we, releases this white paper. And in it, he's talking about a decentralized peer-to-peer, he's talking about decentralized peer-to-peer internet transactions with a deflationary currency on an immutable, open ledger. So those 6 points right there is Bitcoin in a nutshell. And in a nutshell, that is blockchain as well, right? It's decentralized. It's peer-to-peer. It's directly from me to Mbali, right? It's not no one in between. It's just me and Mbali. We are doing the transaction. No one else is required here. I don't even need notes because the notes are stamped of approval by the Reserve Bank. It's, I'm giving her something that I found. I own this. This is mine. This is me, and I'm giving it to her. It's directly peer-to-peer. It's deflationary, and this is the revolutionary part, and I love this example. The example of a crop of corn in your house, right? If you have a section of your garden that you are going to use to grow crops and grow corn for your family to feed, right? Let's say it's 3 meters by 3 meters, 9 meters squared, and that feeds your family for a year, and you can even sell it on. That is always going to feed your family, depending on the weather conditions, but most times, and you should be able to store for the dry seasons and take all those things into account, but that piece of land, if you cultivate it and work it, it is going to perpetually provide for your family. Now, if I sell my 9 meter squared piece of land for R1 million, I have that R1 million. Say that R1 million is going to feed my family for a period of time, but eventually, not only is the R1 million going to run out, also, my R1 million is going to be worth less. As time goes on, the money is actually going to lose its purchasing power. Now, in my 5 years of researching Bitcoin, I've tried to get to the bottom of inflation. There is very little historic underlying cases as to where inflation comes from. The closest you will get to, and I think that was me, I better mute my computer for those in the front row, WhatsApp going on. Inflation really is just, the bottom line is it's inflating the circulating supply of currency. It's putting more gold out into the society's ledgers and transactions of gold and commodities, right? And that's what happens. People print money. Nowadays, they're just literally printing digital money on the Reserve Bank's books, and you have rising inflation and you lose your purchasing power. Satoshi Nakamoto had a genius idea and based his entire system on commodities like gold and said there's only a certain amount of gold in the world and there will only ever be a certain amount of Bitcoin. Therefore, it is deflationary. It doesn't lose its purchasing power. If anything, it gains purchasing power because the more people want it, the less there is. It's revolutionary. It's immutable. That means it's unchangeable. So every transaction that happens on that ledger cannot be changed, cannot be hacked, right? If the original accounting formats of your accounting ledgers that you used to get back in the days of accounting in high school, you could Tipex, you could scratch, you could do all kinds of things to cook the books. All you have to do is ask Steinhoff that. You can't do that on the blockchain because it's immutable, unless you get more computing power to try and attack the system, which requires so much computing power, you may as well be devoting your computing power to mine the cryptocurrency anyway. So it's a logical conclusion that you may as well be contributing to the network than attacking the network. So that's what immutable means. It's open. This ledger is free for anyone to see. You may not know exactly that Mbali and Ryan, that's a nice name, Ryan. You may not be knowing that Ryan and Mbali are the people that transacted, but you can see their wallets and you can see how much was transacted, right? That's what open means. And a ledger is, you know, if you don't know what a ledger is, accounting, spreadsheets, Excel, Google Sheets, that kind of stuff. All of these things are revolutionary. Now, what is incredible is that he remains anonymous to this day, and he never copyrighted the information. Every single one of these above points here are revolutionary to the core. Every single one of them. Our entire society is based on the opposite of these points, including copywriting your information. The guys that invented Hashgraph, if you've heard of it, they've patented their information. Satoshi Nakamoto comes and says it's free for anyone. It's just, if you start to see, this is mind-blowing. What is going on? Anyway, I can't put that into words, can I? So, just a little note I wanted to add in here. Satoshi's work established the blockchain idea when Bitcoin, and Bitcoin continues to be the standard in cryptographic digital assets. Now, blockchain was not the first time, the Bitcoin white paper was not the first time blockchain was used as a term, but for a chain of blocks grouping a bunch of transactions together, this was the first time it was used, and this is where the term eventually came from, right? The Bitcoin white paper doesn't exactly use the term blockchain. It uses terms like a chain of blocks and a chain of digital signatures, and then Hal Finney and Satoshi started writing later on, and they started using the term blockchain. And this is where the idea comes from. When we refer to blockchain, and you hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm not interested in Bitcoin, I'm interested in blockchain. Well, my friend, blockchain was invented by the guy that invented Bitcoin. So deal with this. These guys, oh, Bitcoin's a Ponzi. I'm interested in blockchain. Well, my friend, then blockchain's a Ponzi too. Choose. Sorry, that's the scam Facebook are coming out saying. Okay, so how much time have I got? 5 minutes, 11 minutes. I'm going to try and race through these. Hope you can see these pictures. And I want to thank Atish Ramkaran of Blockchain Entrepreneurs Club South Africa and Paresh Daya. They gave me the idea for this, which is showing you pictures of a server room, right? Most of you should be familiar with this. If you're not, and we'll use banking as an example, when you use your credit card, the transaction is recorded back at a database somewhere, right? All your computing, your Gmail, everything, all your computing is going back to a database, a server room. Mark Forrest has made all his money building server rooms, literally. And so you probably can't see that, but this one up here at the top is about the size of the Moses Mabhida Stadium complex, and inside it are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hard drives, right? But do you know how much security you need to get there? And when you're there, imagine the power you have to start making changes. And we're putting all our trust in these server rooms with some dude. No one can see this is what's going on, it's centralized. Then you have blockchain, and blockchain looks like this. You do a transaction, and it's recorded not on one single point, it's recorded on every single point, just like the internet. Where is the internet? No one knows. The internet is us. We are the internet. Don't let MWeb and these punks try and slow our speeds down, because we'll get around them. We will. The guys can try and throttle us, and they can try and, they can choose the speeds and, the whole net neutrality thing. We will get around that. People are getting around the bans in China. That's the beauty of decentralization. And that's what blockchain is. Your entire database is on every single one of these computers. So let's go into it a little bit deeper, okay? And I'm hoping there are many people in this room who do not understand this, because I think Gareth will give a greater insight into the future of blockchain. But let's look at the actual Bitcoin blockchain, how it works. And this is very simplified. There are Ethereum developers here. Where's my Ethereum developer? We've got some Ethereum developers in the room, and so we've got literally an exchange actuarial scientist in the room. So my apologies to the developers. This is very simplified. Okay, so you have a chain of blocks. Block 1, transaction 1, 2, 3 happens. And so here's how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin, the code was written that every 10 minutes there will be a new block created. And once the new block happens, all the transactions will be recorded in that ledger. And you can imagine a blockchain, literally each block being a page in your ledger, in your spreadsheet. You're just turning a page. Every 10 minutes, you're full, you turn a page. Whether you're full or not, you're turning the page. It's squeezing all those transactions into the block, going on to the next one every 10 minutes. All right. If you had to download the Bitcoin blockchain today, it would be 173 gigabytes worth of information. So this is what it looks like. Here's your blockchain over here, and there are currently 9,000 computers around the world supporting the network. The blockchain of Bitcoin is 9,000 computers, all with the exact same ledger, hosted on their computers, and they are checking. You can see the little ticks there, they're checking that, yep, that block is correct, that transaction is correct. They're supporting, making sure, yep, that's correct, that's correct. All they're doing is checking. They're not getting rewarded for this, they're not getting paid for this. These are not miners, these are people supporting the network. This is the internet. This is what Bitcoin is. They're just supporting the network. Now a miner is on this network and they are creating new blocks. They are looking for a new block, and they create a new block, they'll be rewarded, and boom, they've decrypted the block, and they get rewarded with Bitcoin for creating this block, and all the transactions then get written into that block. These guys here require an immense amount of computing power to decrypt each block, and they get rewarded in Bitcoin for doing that. Okay. I'm not going to go into how much it is and all that, this is just a basic overview. This is the current Bitcoin network as it stands. Today there were 9,989 nodes. There are 9,989 computers running the blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain, on their computer, not getting rewarded. They're just participating in the experiment. About 2,000 of them are miners. They are creating new blocks and being rewarded. Okay. These miners are operating, and in fact, Gerald's got them over there at the back. You can see them in person. Either a graphics processing unit, a GPU type of miner, or an crypto asset mine, an application-specific integrated circuit. The circuit is literally designed for a specific algorithm to mine that coin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever they've designed it for. And so these guys are working out extremely complex calculations. They are decrypting an encrypted bit of code, and they get rewarded in Bitcoin every time they create a new block. So that's what a Bitcoin mine looks like, not a PowerPoint presentation at your local country club. That, I promise you, you can come see your mine if you want to. There are a few of you that know what I'm talking about. At the moment in South Africa, it's very expensive to do this kind of mining. You can just break even if you speak to Gerald. He'll show you how to do it. You can just break even. But this is, again, the genius of Satoshi Nakamoto. He used the concept of real metals, real commodity, real resources in the ground. When the Voortrekkers found the gold reef up in the old Transvaal, there were big nuggets of gold in the rivers. And they could just pick it up, right? Ooh, we're rich forever. The De Beers are rich forever because we found the gold. You know, we found the diamonds. We're lucky. You know, we're the lucky ones. Woohoo! And then, of course, it got harder and harder. The more gold got mined, the more diamonds, the more resources get mined, the harder it is to dig and get more out of it. Now you've got to dig 5 Ks underground to get the gold ore. And Satoshi Nakamoto built it in exactly the same way. He encrypted the Bitcoin protocol to get harder and harder. The more people join the network, the harder it is to mine Bitcoin. It's called the proof of work system. And that is, in essence, why it is getting more expensive to mine Bitcoin, and why a lot of people are moving over to mining Ethereum and other altcoins. And less people in South Africa are doing it because it's so expensive. These days, the cheaper your power, that's where all your mines are going. So what I want to do is just show you an example of what a Bitcoin looks like. A lot of people ask, what is a Bitcoin? What exactly is a Bitcoin? You know, like, have you ever had that conversation with someone older than 35? And They're like, well, what is a Bitcoin? How am I supposed to know what a Bitcoin is? No, show me what a Bitcoin is. Well, technically, that in essence is a Bitcoin. That's a private key. And in that private key is a certain amount of Bitcoin. Now, this private key is made up of the letters A to G or 0 to 9. In fact, I think it's 1 to 9. But all of these figures here make up a whole bunch of different sequence of numbers. So you can imagine the sequences required to try and guess that private key. Because people say, well, then if that's what a Bitcoin is, and Satoshi Nakamoto's private key is currently sitting in 980,000 Bitcoin, why don't I just try and type and see if I get the private key? Well, I want to read you something. I just want to, because people ask this, they go, well, that's all a Bitcoin is? It's just numbers? Well, that's what a credit card is. You could be guessing the same thing. If you take that sequence of digits from A to G and 1 to 9, in the same way you could try and guess James Brian Preston with the card number 5876 and my CCV number and my expiration date. It's the exact same concept, but it's even harder because the odds of guessing a Bitcoin private key is actually exponentially harder than guessing the full sequence of a credit card detail. I'm going to read you something. In my final 2 minutes, I know that I've wasted much time. I'm going to do it on my computer. But it's for the sake of example, and just to see the genius of cryptography, where the word crypto comes from. It's based on the technology of cryptography, the industry of cryptography, which has been around for over 100 years. Watch the movie, I think it's The Imitation Game, about World War II's encryption. Incredible story. Okay, so just listen to this. The computing power required to guess a private key. Let's assume that you have a processor that can perform 1 trillion key guesses per second. The number of keys possible, and thus the number of keys that you would have to guess in order to guess a private key, is 2 to the power of 256. That sounds fairly basic, but that's 75 digits long. If you think 1 billion is 1 and 9 zeros, so it's 10 digits long, the chances are 75 digits long. Just get your brain around that. But if your brain can't get around it, I'm going to try and explain it further. With 1 trillion guesses per second, that single processor will take 3.67 times by 10 to the power of 57. That's 58 digits long. Years. 58 digits long, years. Which is 2.7 times by 10 to the power of 47, 48 digits long, times the age of the universe. That's how long it would take you to guess a Bitcoin private key. Now, if you wanted to have enough processors to get a reasonable time frame of 1,000 years, time to wrap up, you would need 3.67 times 10 to the power of 54, which is 55 digits long, processors. With Intel's biggest Xeon Platinum chips at 7.6 centimeters by 5.6 centimeters, this many chips would take up 1.56 times by 10 to the power of 55 square meters, just to lay them all out. And that's not even on motherboards or the rest of the computer required to have the processors to actually be useful. With this much area, you could cover the sun. Not once, but 2.5 times 10 to the power of 36. That's 37 digits long. Times. So, and that's only to give you 1,000 years. And remember, we are looking at the entire age of the universe. That's how much computing power is required to guess a Bitcoin private key. So you can see the genius of cryptography that went into the invention of Bitcoin and blockchain technology truly is why it has become so popular. And why today there are over 312 exchanges around the world taking your fiat currency, your rands, your dollars, your pounds for Bitcoin. Because it is a genius invention that very, very clever people are putting their trust in. We can't trust people anymore. Let's trust code. That's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to hand over to Mark. He's got some giveaways. And if you want to find out more, I'd love for you to come and join us at our next event. Sign up for our newsletter on sacrypto.co.za. Let's hang out afterwards, grab some drinks, grab some burgers afterwards, and let's talk. Mark, thanks so much, bro.
Right now? No. Oh dear. Naughty?
Okay, I'm back, sorry.
Switch it on.
I'm good. Sorry. Cool. Yeah, geez, thanks, James. That gives us a really good insight into what Bitcoin's about. And like James says, if you've got some questions, you can see how passionate he is about this topic. I'd highly suggest sticking around, asking him some questions. Yeah, there's so much to learn. We're going to be, like I said, trying to do these events more often to start educating and start learning more. We're all learning. Every one of us, as James says, there's only so many clever people in this room, but we're all learning. I just want to do a quick thank yous to a few people. First of all, to Trav and Mia. They run the set, which is actually downstairs. And the set is a co-working space that is quite awesome. If you haven't been on the Wi-Fi, they've got 110 meg download Wi-Fi. So if you ever need a place to work and you need a spot to come and sit, this is the place. And their coffee is really good, the vibe is good, and thanks for hosting us here tonight, guys. I think it's going to be one of many. We've been chatting to Trav for a while now to use this venue as a place to host these sort of events. Downstairs you can have smaller events, so if it's a specialized sort of thing, we'll be using it. So we'll probably be back, but thanks again. And to the bar guys as well, thanks for, and the coffee and the burger guys. The burgers are really good, the beers are better. And then, Kath is sitting right here. Kath is our, I don't know, she's our go-to. She's our social media, she looks after our social media, she looks after our editing on our website. Kath is a hero at SA Crypto, so thank you for everything you've done for us tonight. The team from Avancor is sitting at the table, they're like the big bosses. They well, like I said, there's Sean, and there's a whole history behind that, but after Sean started SA Crypto, him and Nick started up Avancor, which is a blockchain development company, amongst other things. And yeah, Corinne, which is actually James's wife, she works for them, so it's all one big happy family, and she helped us with the interest tonight, so thanks for that. Just the few other things, Kevin is sitting at the back there from BitKid. You might have seen some of his cards on the chairs. Pick it up, go chat to him. I'm going to be doing a little giveaway just now from Kevin. They offer some hosting of rigs, so if you want to do the mining that James was talking about, that's a guy to chat to. And then Gerald from Technosol is also here. So I think that's my views. Then we got some giveaways. So the guys from Cryptora are also one of our sponsors now.
James wants you.
It's real hosting. Like, he'll tell you there's a place here in town where you can go and look at the mines. Just so that people are like, hosting.
Oh, right, okay, not hosting.
Actual real.
You know, this, actually, just go get a beer and talk to Kevin. So Pravin and his team from Cryptora. So you might see the banner over there. So Cryptora is a new cryptocurrency exchange that the guys are working on. It's a Durban project. It's proudly KZN. Pravin's been in the game for quite a long time, in the industry, IT industry for a long time. So he's a well-recognized name. And I think there's going to be some really exciting things coming out of this project. Cryptora's got some cool tech behind it. The platform that they're building is built to make it simple to trade cryptocurrencies. So they're busy with, am I correct in saying, the ICO stage?
Yeah, we're about to
ICO stage.
Yeah.
So check out Cryptora.com, eh? Yeah, Cryptora.com is with Crypto with a K. And they've graciously sponsored us some prizes this evening. 10,000 rands worth of prizes, which is actually 10,000 rands worth of Crypto tokens. So they've given it up in 3 batches. So at the moment, the ICO price, if I'm correct in saying, is 75 US cents.
Yep.
And the first prize that they've offered to us tonight is 5,000 rands worth of Cryptoro tokens. Second is 3,000, and then 2,000 for the third. So I've got the guest list. Did Kapani actually, yes, you can come on.
Yeah, no, I thought so.
I know you got 2 hands. We've got a little spreadsheet there of all the people that attended, and then I've got this magical random blockchain number generator on my phone. It's from the blockchain, I promise. That's not correct. Okay, so I'm going to push generate. There's one, we've got between 1 and 80, and I'll choose 3 people, and then we'll hook you guys up with Pravin and his team afterwards. So the first number was 75.
75, so that is Tabile.
It's Tabile, yeah? Let's have a tick next to it then. Okay, so they have to have a tick. 57. Janita? There's Janita. Okay, well, we're going to go 3, 2, 1, so you got the third prize. Okay, thank you. We'll hook you up with Pravin afterwards. You can just stand away for thanks, because there's no official prize. I'm not going to give you 5,000 rand, 2,000 rand worth of tokens, because the blockchain's invisible, James told us. Okay, then let's go back to my blockchain generator. 37. Come on. Gareth Miles. So that's the second prize of 3,000. And then the last one that we're going to do is number 55. Suhail Raiwat. There we go. Cool. 5,000, and you guys can take. And thanks a lot thanks to the Cryptoro guys, thanks a lot for your generous donation. We've been working quite closely with these guys, just chatting to them about Durban and the industry, so there's a lot that's going to happen there, so keep posted. And yeah. So next up we've got Gareth Jenkinson, who voice you might recognize. You might not recognize his face. He's the sports guy on ECR in the afternoons. He's a co-host on the East Coast Radio Drive show, and he's actually a journalist. He started out as a journalist at the Witness newspaper and grew his career from there, and then 3 years ago started at East Coast. And he's got a passion for tech, so he started writing about cryptocurrencies, about the blockchain, and he's actually one of the leading journalists for the Cointelegraph website, so which is one of the biggest crypto news websites next to SA Crypto, obviously. And we're going to be bigger than them soon. So, and then Gareth actually writes for us a little bit as well, so his articles are really informative and got some really good knowledge around the topic. So yeah, there's Gareth, and let's hear what he's got to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. So, as you heard, my name is Gareth Jenkinson. I am a presenter at East Coast Radio, but that's not what brought me here today. Just want to get a little less cracky here. I've been writing for Cointelegraph, which is one of the leading cryptocurrency websites worldwide. Yes?
Can we have an advertising discount?
I don't work in sales. Good try though. So I've been writing for Cointelegraph for about a year, and my journey into cryptocurrency writing was an interesting one. Obviously everyone heard about cryptocurrency, mainly last year in 2017 there was a mad bull run, and as things geared up towards the end of the year, everyone was talking about Bitcoin. So I was kind of scratching my head sort of June-ish, and I went over to my brother's house one day, and I said to Jeff, what is Bitcoin? We need to figure what this is, you know, like, I need to know what Bitcoin is. So we got on the internet and we looked at a few videos and we kind of tried to figure out what this thing is, you know, what is Bitcoin? And we watched a few videos and we tried to figure it out. And, you know, it was pretty confusing. So I'm going to start there, because if you can get your head around the basic concept of what Bitcoin is and how it works, you can begin to understand the applications of the technology and where it can take us as a whole. So I have prepared a very simple PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to take you through it. So what is Bitcoin? Sorry for the small font. I didn't realize it was so small. So Bitcoin was officially launched in 2009. The Genesis block was mined in January 2009, based off the white paper that was written by a person or a group of people. We don't know. James didn't really say that, called Satoshi Nakamoto. And this 9-page document titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, laid out the plans for this electronic payment system that would work without the need for a central authority. You don't need a bank to process transactions if you're using Bitcoin. It's a peer-to-peer network. I can send stuff directly to you, and I don't have to wait for that confirmation SMS from Standard Bank or whoever your chosen financial service provider is. So Bitcoin is a payment system, and it allows users to send money, in this case Bitcoin, to another user in the network without the need for a bank. And this is what is known as a trustless system. We trust banks with our money. You get paid a salary and you have a bank account. They deposit the money into your bank account, and you trust that whatever bank you're banking with doesn't lose your money. And when you pay people, you trust that they actually pay them the money. So we are going to look at how it works. So number one, Bitcoin is essentially a series of computers sharing an accounting ledger. That's what you need to get your head around. Bitcoin is literally an accounting ledger. You don't actually have an account. Like James said, there is a private key, and that is where your transactions are basically stored. It's just a list of transactions. So let's say I send James 1 Bitcoin. By using digital timestamps, that transaction is broadcast to every single computer on the network, and here is where the blockchain part comes in. As James said, there are nodes that are constantly checking the network, making sure everything is correct. So every computer takes our transaction and bundles it with other transactions into digital blocks. Each of these blocks can only hold so much data, so once a block has reached its threshold, which is a point of contention, but we won't get into that today, the computer must solve a proof-of-work algorithm to provide a hash, which is a digital signature, which is vital to prevent double spending or someone physically changing or reversing transactions in a block. So you have to expend electricity and energy to solve this cryptographic algorithm in order to unlock the block, in order for people to store transactions on that block and for it to be added onto the chain. And once the computer's done that, it broadcasts that block to the entire network. All the computers add this block and the contained batch of transactions to the chain, which extends the blockchain. And of course, we touched on it earlier, nodes that are doing this, that are called miners, are in competition with each other to unlock these blocks. And if they do, they get rewarded with Bitcoin. And that is how Bitcoin is minted. That is how you get new Bitcoin into the system. And as James said, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. I wrote a very interesting article on what happens when we reach that 21 million cap. But you don't have to worry, because none of us will be alive when it happens. Let's get to the next slide. If you're confused, don't worry. The purpose of my presentation is not to give you a technological background of Bitcoin. There's so much information online, you can find out all of that. What I'm going to be talking about is the benefits of Bitcoin and blockchain and how it's going to change the financial system. So in the space of 10 years, Bitcoin has really gone from an obscure system that was used by nerds. I'm sure some of you might have heard of the Bitcoin pizza. Some dude spent 10,000 Bitcoin buying a couple of pizzas, and today, could you imagine what 10,000 Bitcoin could buy you? You would be a multi-billionaire. So we'll look at the benefits of Bitcoin. There's no need for a third party or central authority. You can pay anyone. You don't have to wait for anyone to do that for you. It happens. I send James that Bitcoin, he's got it in his wallet, and he's a happy chappy. It's anonymous as well, which obviously banks and financial institutions don't like, but it means that you can do with your money as you please and no one can know about it. In the same breath, it is completely transparent, so we can see who has how much Bitcoin. If you go onto the blockchain explorer, you can actually see accounts that have huge amounts of Bitcoin in them. Obviously, some people have speculated that some of those accounts, one of them belongs to Satoshi, because obviously when the Genesis block was mined and further blocks were mined after that, a load of Bitcoin was unlocked. So at the time, someone, hoarded a whole load of Bitcoin. So it's also secure, and transaction fees are pretty low. That was a topic of debate though, because as the network got busier and busier last year, transaction fees got higher and higher, and it got pretty slow as well. Some people said that it would take a few days for transactions to go through, which is not ideal. And it's also worldwide, which makes it very powerful in my opinion. If you've ever tried to send money overseas, for whatever reason, you're going to have to wait for the banks to do it, and it could take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. And this is why I told my dad that he needs to get on that, so he can send his money overseas. So, of course, I wouldn't be objective if I didn't cover the disadvantages of Bitcoin. Believe it, there are disadvantages. They are very real though. So let's be serious for a quick second. It's not widely accepted. So there's not many places that would actively accept Bitcoin as a payment method. There are. When Steam had it, if any of you are gamers, when Steam accepted Bitcoin, that was a happy time. They don't anymore. You could buy your games with Bitcoin, that was great. If you lose your private key, you lose your Bitcoin. Now this one is bad, and there's a couple of interesting articles on Cointelegraph about people that have lost their private keys. You know that long number that James said is impossible to guess? If you lose that, it's gone. Guys, there are people that have lost thousands of Bitcoin because they lost their private key. It's gone. Like, you can't get it back, and it's orphaned in the system as well. You can't go back and change the Bitcoin protocol to bring that Bitcoin back into the system. No one can ever have that Bitcoin. So you also can't reverse your transactions, so you need to be careful who you send your Bitcoin to, because you'll have to ask very nicely for them to send it back. And of course, last but not least, the price of Bitcoin is volatile, as we saw over the last few months. It changes every day, and that can be between a few $100s and a few $1,000, depending on how that is going. So, in my role as a journalist for Cointelegraph, my editor has me writing all sorts of analytical pieces, and these can do with anything from, funny little quirky stories about people losing their Bitcoin, and more recently, it's been a lot of stories about how the banks and financial institutions are starting to use Bitcoin and blockchain. So the decentralized nature of Bitcoin obviously makes it a powerful alternative for banks, rather people, to store money and make transactions. Banks don't like it because it cuts them out, and many banks have actively spoken out against cryptocurrencies. You can see here a story I did late last year. Queen's Bank laughs off Bitcoin, they weren't interested. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud last year. He didn't really understand what was going on, I don't think. And then of course people like Berkshire Hathaway CEOs, calling things Bitcoin rat poison and that sort of stuff. That's the kind of rhetoric we're getting out of these people. Of course, regulation has a lot to do with this, and there have been massive strides across the world of people trying to do their best to make Bitcoin safe for people to use. And in my opinion, all the evidence over the last year suggests that banks are never going to be using Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency of choice to do interbank settlements and those sort of things. It's just not applicable on that sort of scale, and that's where we saw things like Ripple exploding in the last week especially, because banks are actively starting to use their platform to do interbank settlements and that sort of thing. As you can see there, another story that I did. This has been the take of banks over the last few years, taking blockchain. James touched on it earlier today. A lot of people talk about not wanting anything to do with Bitcoin. They want to know about blockchain. They want to be involved in blockchain. So I've done a few interesting stories over the last few months, and one of them was quite interesting. World Bank launched a bond issuance through a blockchain system. So this is one of the top financial institutions in the world actively using a blockchain system to facilitate the provision of debt through a blockchain system. JP Morgan, the very same institution headed up by Bitcoin basher Jamie Dimon, as I touched on earlier, they're actively developing blockchain systems and solutions to improve their own processes. And of course, American bank PNC last week saying they're going to use Ripple's X-current technology to facilitate rapid interbank transactions and international money transfers. So like James said, the power of blockchain technology allows these banks to go ahead and do those sort of things. Goldman Sachs, on the other hand, also toying with creating a cryptocurrency trading desk. They do clear Bitcoin futures for their clients. They're one of the few financial institutions that are allowing some of their employees to do that for their customers, which is a pretty good move in my opinion. And to quote Goldman Sachs Chief Financial Officer Martin Chavez, physical Bitcoin is something tremendously interesting and tremendously challenging. From the perspective of custody, we don't yet see an institutional grade custodial solution for Bitcoin, and we're interested in having that exist, and it's a long road. So it's not going to come anytime soon, but some of these financial institutions are saying, we're interested in Bitcoin, we want to get involved, but at the moment, at an institutional level where we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars worth of investment waiting to go into crypto, it's just not safe enough for them to get involved yet. Last year, who bought Bitcoin last year? Who heard about Bitcoin and got involved? Okay, there's a few of you. We did as well. Me and my brother and a few other people I know. So obviously 2017 saw the biggest bull run in Bitcoin history from January to December. The price rose over 1,000%, and the price of Bitcoin in January was just over $1,000. That's 15,000 Rand. So if you bought one Bitcoin for 15,000 Rand, 12 months later, Bitcoin hit a high of over $20,000, depends where you were buying it, and that was around 290,000 Rand. So a lot of people got rich, very, very rich in the space of a year, and that's how they get landlords. So Wall Street's obviously been very keen on this. If anyone's seeing a rapid rise in value of any stock or bond or anything like that, is going to want to get their hands on the pie, and that's exactly what happened last year. There was talk of Bitcoin futures contracts being launched by the Chicago Board Options Exchange, as well as the Chicago Mercantile Exchange late last year, and this had a marked effect on investor sentiment, and definitely had a role to play in the price of Bitcoin skyrocketing at the end of that year, and that's why we saw it go as high as it did, and then obviously correct as badly as it did. And then 3 months later, in February, the CFTC, now that's the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, as well as the Securities and Exchange Commission in America, had a very important meeting, and they basically said that they were wanting to foster the development and growth of blockchain as well as Bitcoin, but they were worried about the environment that was out there. A lot of people were getting hurt, like I said, the price of Bitcoin dramatically dropped after December, and they basically said that we're all for it, but we need to protect our investors because a lot of people got hurt. So, as Giancarlo said, virtual currencies mark a paradigm shift in how we think about payments, traditional financial processes, and engaging in economic activity. And ignoring these developments will not make them go away. So that's the kind of stance these kind of regulatory bodies are having. We also saw people getting interested in launching exchange-traded funds. It's another type of financial instrument, and obviously these guys are seeing all the money flying into Bitcoin late in 2017, and they wanted to help people get in on that. Now this is a financial instrument that is used for all sorts of different commodities and stocks across the world, and people want to apply it to Bitcoin. A specific example is the Winklevoss twins. Some of you guys might know them as the men who successfully sued Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. They've been real adopters of crypto over the last few years, and they've been pushing really hard for an ETF. Everyone's been turned down though. There is no Bitcoin ETF yet in America, and the latest news suggests that we're only going to see a proper response from the SEC in February next year. So you're going to have to wait if you want to start investing in exchange-traded funds. Now, James didn't touch on Ethereum. And like you did say, a lot of people claim to be experts in this space. I am definitely not an expert, and this stuff is incredibly complicated, but I am going to quickly talk about Ethereum and why I think it is an important player in the industry. So, Ethereum is basically an open source blockchain platform and an operating system that allows developers to create decentralized applications. So we've got a few developers in-house here. If they feel like they want to create a blockchain application, they can do it using Ethereum. It runs on a blockchain, and obviously it's shared among a node of computers across the world, just like Bitcoin. So, well, Bitcoin's blockchain is simply a record of transaction. Ethereum's blockchain will track the state of accounts and transactions in the network with the changes of information and transfers of value. There's two types of accounts: externally owned accounts, and those control private keys, and then contract accounts, which will execute the code as set out by those original accounts. And like Bitcoin, nodes in the network receive, verify, and execute transactions. They're grouped into blocks and nodes, and they have to complete a proof of work algorithm in order to have their block added to the chain. First come, first served, just like Bitcoin. So if you unlock a block, you get a reward of Ethereum, and that's how new Ethereum is minted as well. But Ethereum is known for its smart contract technology. So if you've heard of Ethereum, you will have heard about smart contracts. And this refers to the code in a contract account. And these are programs that execute when a transaction is sent to that account. Users can create new contracts by deploying code to the blockchain. And this is what makes Ethereum so powerful. You can build a multitude of applications. Anything you can think of, you can pretty much build on Ethereum. It's an amazing piece of technology. Some people might not agree with me, but that's your opinion. So a simple way to look at this is, say we build a decentralized application for public speaking. James programs this application to pay me for every talk that I do. So like this evening, I rock up, I do the talk, and I record it on my application. I will then be paid the agreed amount. The app does the work. James doesn't have to go into a standard bank and pay me 500 Rand for doing this talk. The application will do it all, and it's all decentralized, it's all shared across the network, and it's very, very powerful. So what can you use it for? Just like I said, its core principles of providing trust, transparency, security, and efficiency. You can use it for payments, you can use it for messaging apps, you can track ownership of assets like real estate, and this is where it has amazing capabilities. Voting systems, data storage, you name it. It can pretty much do it. It's fantastic. So there are some real-world applications, and this is where this ties into the financial world. The prime example of Ethereum being used in meaningful ways is by JP Morgan. The financial services company developed its own in-house platform called Forum. Now, this is targeted at enterprises, big businesses, financial institutions, that sort of thing, and it allows for the high-speed processing of private transactions within a permissioned group of participants. So basically, if a whole load of banks get together and they say, we want to settle all our payments with each other without having to wait weeks and weeks for these payments to go through, they'll get involved in Forum, and they can take advantage of this really, really powerful technology. And it says something for the adoption of Ethereum and blockchain technology. If these guys are literally taking code that has been developed by blockchain developers and using it in the actual financial sphere. So if you're wondering what's going to happen over the next few years, if you just bought Bitcoin last year in the hopes of getting rich and you got a little bit wrecked, don't stress. If a year of covering cryptocurrency has taught me anything, the industry is always in flux. Everything changes. Every week something different has happened, and it's incredibly enjoyable to be a part of and incredibly frustrating at the same time. Both cryptocurrencies and their blockchain technology are constantly being upgraded and improved by various groups of developers, and I think it's worthwhile noting that they're doing their best to provide safety and security, and there have been exploits over the years. Lots of people have seen their money lost if you've been investing in the wrong exchanges and that sort of thing, and we've even seen Bitcoin and Ethereum be exploited by certain bugs in their code. In fact, Bitcoin, just this week, the developers came out admitting that they had to address some serious issues in the Bitcoin code. It was kind of in-house hidden talk, but the ramifications could have been quite serious. So once again, as amazing as Satoshi was and his white paper was, there are some faults in the systems, and it's something worth knowing. If you're wondering what's happening in the markets, in my opinion, we're beginning to see a period of stability in terms of Bitcoin and other altcoins. So if you look at the Bitcoin graphs, and I'm by no means a trader, I'm not into that. I do hold some crypto, but I don't trade. Things are definitely stabilizing, in my opinion, and it's becoming a better store of value. So just to finish off, a couple of impressions from some of the stories that I've done, and two of the people that I really hold in high regard in the crypto industry. Binance, I don't know if anyone here does any trading on Binance, but that's the world's biggest cryptocurrency exchange by trading volume, and their chief executive officer is known as CZ. He launched this exchange in 2017. So in the space of a year, the platform became the biggest cryptocurrency exchange. You can only trade cryptocurrencies on the exchange, so you can't go and buy Bitcoin with dollars or fiat currency. You have to send Bitcoin to the exchange, and then you can begin to exchange cryptocurrencies. Nevertheless, in the space of a year, he built the most successful cryptocurrency exchange. I was lucky enough to speak to him on the phone about 3 or 4 months ago, and incredible story. If you feel like reading it, you can go into Cointelegraph and read that story. But these guys have done amazing work and just really working hard, trying to provide a solid product that looks after people's money. It allows them to trade all sorts of different cryptocurrencies in a safe and effective manner. Does anyone recognize that man? Here we go. It's Vitalik Buterin. So he is, in my mind, he's the Satoshi who's actually lived up to his name. He is the creator of Ethereum. He is a co-founder. Of course, there were other people involved, but the idea was originally his. The story is very, very interesting. He was introduced to Bitcoin when he was 17 by his dad, and he sort of became enamored by the idea of Bitcoin. So he's a super intelligent individual. Some people have placed him on the autism scale of intellect. He's very, very smart. If you've ever seen interviews with him, he's actually quite weird and awkward, but he's just amazingly smart. So he became enamored with Bitcoin, and he decided that he wanted to get Bitcoin, learn more about Bitcoin. So he did what I did, he did what James did. We started reading, and he started writing. So he started writing for a number of online publications, and he started getting paid in Bitcoin for his contributions. We're talking 2011, 2012, so he was getting paid 10 to 20 Bitcoin at a time for an article. Quite a hefty sum, but I mean, at the time it wasn't worth that much, so he was just hoarding. As he was writing, he eventually sort of became an expert in his own right, and he went on to create his own news website. And the more he learned about Bitcoin, the more he realized the world could use a blockchain-based platform that went further than just facilitating transactions. Now that's what Bitcoin does. It can just send people money. And, yes, some people will argue you can actually store information on the Bitcoin protocol. It is difficult, and you have to be incredibly skilled to go and find these files and stuff like that people have used or stored on the Bitcoin blockchain. But it's not very versatile. He wanted to create something versatile. So all of that Bitcoin that he saved up over the few years that he'd been writing, he cashed some of it out, and he spent a year traveling the globe. He went and spoke to some of the brightest minds, and he slowly dreamed up, and he created Ethereum. It's a very complex system, and to think one man created all of that, or wrote the white paper and laid the foundation for all of that was, in my mind, incredibly inspiring. And he's just 24 years old. He's a very, very smart individual. So my parting thoughts this evening, I hope I haven't rambled too much, but I do want to just point a few things out to you. As a trader and investor, you need to do your own research and don't invest more than you're willing to lose. Everyone, of course, will always say that to you, but there is a lot of false information out there. I've been writing for a while. There's so many different aspects to cryptocurrencies and blockchain. You can't know everything, and you have to be incredibly careful about who you give your money to. You need to be aware of scams and frauds during the ICO rush. So many people were duped by ridiculous projects last year. I've written a couple of stories about this. BitConnect, in particular, I don't know if any of you have heard about that. It was a lending scheme which promised ridiculous returns on investment. Eventually the founders ran off with everyone's money. So you need to read as much information as you can. That story was crazy. So in order to use BitConnect, you had to give them your Bitcoin, and then they would give you BitConnect points. So you gave them all of your real money, and they said, here, take our tokens, we promise you they're worth something. Then you could lend out your BitConnect tokens as a loan, and you would earn ridiculous returns on investment, but in the end, everyone just got burned. So if you can, read as much information as you can on the subject. There's so many good websites out there. SA Crypto, I know, is going to be one of those websites in the few years to come, especially in the South African context. And hold on, guys, because it's tough out there. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Gareth. That was really cool. Interesting to hear thoughts from somebody that's in this every day, reading and learning every single day. So what we're going to do is I got Kev from BitKid has offered us 2 little prizes from BitKid. It's Bitcoin. Are these Bitcoin cash or Bitcoin? Bitcoin, eh? Kev bought me this Bitcoin Cash t-shirt back from a conference he went to a few years ago. I'm wearing it proudly because Bitcoin Cash went up 15% today. Right, let's do this. Okay, so for the cap, number 3. Number 76. Prevent ready. Right, then the t-shirts, let's do this quickly. Next blockchain generated number 72. 14. Andre Collier. Andre. Cool, there's a t-shirt for you. I think, yeah, tattoo together from the wrong side. We're proud. Cool, thanks. Gareth and James, we're going to do a Q&A now. So if you guys have any questions, Kath's going to take the roving mic, and then we're going to, this is the roving mic. And then Kath, put your hands up. We are, it's 7:45. I think let's try and get out of here by like 5, 10 past 8, so we're not here all night. We can still have a few beers and network. That's part of what we want to do with these evenings, is make the networking. So yeah, we'll wrap it up. So we'll monitor, and if anybody's got questions, put your hands up. Kath will come to you with the mic, and we'll take it from there.
Anybody have any questions for James and Gary?
Hey Gareth, yeah. So you mentioned that you don't think we'll see 21 million in our lifetime. Why do you think that?
So the Bitcoin protocol is written in such a way that it gets more and more difficult to unlock Bitcoin. So there's a threshold where the amount of Bitcoin that you unlock gets less and less the more you mine. Like James mentioned, the difficulty is established by how many miners there are on the network, and obviously with the amount of computing power there is out there, I think, I stand to be corrected, but the 21 million cap would be reached after the year 2150, so it'll literally take another 100 years or so to reach 21 million coins in circulation. And then obviously the reward for unlocking a block gets so minuscule that it doesn't change the cap anymore. And that's how it's happened. And obviously no one wants to change the Bitcoin protocol, so 21 million is what it stands as, and obviously that makes it deflationary as well. So you don't want to do that.
We're looking at about 16.5 million, almost 17 million processed already.
Yeah.
So you reckon another 3 million?
Yeah, the 4 million, yeah.
4 million, yeah.
It takes that long, yeah. I did write an article. I wish I could remember the information more freshly out of my brain, but it will take that long. It's known. In fact, there's a website that has the date tells you how many people, how many bitcoins have been mined, how many left, when the next difficulty changes, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. Quick one. I read articles about, particularly in South Africa, but I guess worldwide regulation in terms of Bitcoin or trading or cryptocurrencies. Any views on where that's at?
Jane?
Government regulation?
In a global context, and especially in America, like I mentioned, the SEC and those sort of guys are very warm on the subject of Bitcoin trading and that sort of thing. They want to create an environment that's good for investors because they see a lot of people want to be involved in Bitcoin investments and that sort of thing. South African context, I think James knows a bit more. I haven't written too much about the South African context. SARS are interested. They want to know how much crypto you have so they can tax you. But I mean, as it stands now, I'm not actually too informed on the South African context, so maybe you can touch on it.
But yeah, so I've had the privilege of working quite closely with Luno. Luno are the biggest exchange in Africa, one of the biggest in the world, and they are working very closely with the Reserve Bank. I've also worked a lot with people who are in the banking industry who have entire blockchain divisions, and they've worked closely with the Reserve Bank. In fact, just last week I was in Durban meeting with a guy who headed up the fintech division of the South African Reserve Bank. And he will tell you that the Reserve Bank, with the prodding of people like him within the organisation, are open to the capabilities of blockchain. So they're not shutting it down, they're open to it. I think the more we see these multi-level marketing schemes and Ponzi's kind of proliferate, they could get very wary. So that's why I'm so anti them, because they're stuffing it up for everyone else. But at the moment, the Reserve Bank is open to it. For those that don't know, there was a project called Project Corker, which tested interbank transactions between all the big banks in South Africa. Something like 70,000 transactions a second on blockchain technology. And where they stand right now is they've classified crypto assets as a tradable commodity. So if you invest in it, and you don't touch it for 5 years, then it is taxable in the same way you'd be taxed on capital gains tax. But if you're trading it, unfortunately, this is the reality, is you are taxable according to your income tax rate. So I'll leave that up to what you do with that information. Entirely up to you. But so the point is, Reserve Bank have said that's how they classify it. They're not ignorant of it. They're very open to it. And there's a lot of, I think, but one thing that is interesting, what this guy said to me is, he said that basically South Africa is going to follow what G20 does. However Europe, America, etc. approaches crypto assets, they're just going to follow. The Maltas of the world, the Isle of Mans of the world, they're going to be the pioneers because they've got more opportunity to kind of innovate. But the good thing is the likes of Germany are so pro-blockchain that the G20 are very, very open to it. So yeah, overall, it's good news to me, and I think it's a very exciting space. There's no reason not to get involved for a regulatory reason. Obviously, there's maybe cypherpunks here like stuff the bank, stuff regulation. The reality is we need regulation in order to see widespread adoption. Anyways, that's my answer to that.
I was just going to say, in terms of regulation, I have done a few stories on it. It's very important to have regulation because it protects investors. And that's what, especially places like America, they're very forward-thinking. You've got places like China that have outlawed, Bitcoin completely. You can't trade it there. You can't buy it on. There's no exchanges operating anymore. That's why guys like CZ went and created Binance, because you're not trading cryptocurrency with fiat currency, you're just trading cryptocurrencies with, other cryptocurrencies. So they're not really regulated in that sort of sense, but regulation is needed, and I definitely think in a South African context, the regulation will come in the next 5 to 10 years once people get their minds around the technology and how the different things work.
Who's next?
I just have two questions. One is, can we trust blocks being created due to the number of, or low number of transactions? Or is there another reason why perhaps the price hasn't actually even risen to 10,000 in a couple of months?
Huh?
There's so many exchanges out there, and like I said, Cryptora's starting, and they're busy with theirs now. There's so many options. There's so many different things and different benefits to each one. So there isn't the right one, there isn't the best one. All of them offer different things, but my advice, and I've signed up at pretty much all of these exchanges myself personally, just to try and see what they offer. But my advice there is just to make sure, look at the volume on those things. That gives a really good indication of what's being traded. And also just look at their language and their feedback to their users, and how they communicate with their users as well. I think that also gives a good indication of an exchange. It's a personal preference at the end of the day, but it's always best to try and just make sure that that is the one for you. If things look funny, it's probably not the right one for you.
To answer, can you trust it? I don't know personally, but I know the guy who owns it, runs it. He's a person, he owns property here in KZN, he lives in Joburg, he's a good guy. He's a businessman, but he's a decent guy. And he's trying to create a business. Can you trust it? As much as you can trust him, so I'd say he's trustworthy, you know, as you would trust any business. Can you trust the business? I'd say you can. Your second question about the price, for me it's just purely supply and demand. I don't think it's a case of the transaction times, the transaction fees, the block processing times. I don't think it's utility based. I think it's purely supply and demand. People rushed into it and people rushed out. The price exploded. The reason it was 22,000 Rand is because people rushed in. It shouldn't have been 22,000 Rand. You know, it was probably realistically worth about 6,000, 7,000 Rand, 8,000 Rand. But it did get that high, great, but you needed to know where the top was. So, yeah, I think the reality is right now it's purely a case of supply and demand at the moment, and the supply is outweighing demand. A lot of ICOs raised Ethereum, they are selling their Ethereum now. So there's more Ethereum on the exchanges than there is people buying. So the prices are really taking a beating. And it's just going to be the more people hear about crypto and Bitcoin and all these other crypto assets and cryptocurrencies, the more we're going to see the price go up.
Hi guys. I just want to find out, the security regarding the blockchain is there for the transaction to go through security. But then I've heard of and I've read of the guys' wallets being hacked. So how's the security regarding that at the moment?
Depends on the security of where you're storing your wallet, you know. Some exchanges are open to that happening. I've done 1 or 2 stories on some exchanges overseas that have been hacked. Most of it's insider information, so someone will have access to files basically that store people's private keys, and there they can start claiming funds. You have what's called cold storage as well. So obviously you need your private key to, if we're talking Bitcoin in particular, you need your private key to be able to make transactions with that specific wallet. So cold storage, most of these exchanges should have a large amount of their funds in a cold storage wallet. Now this could be a hardware wallet, or you can even write it down on a piece of paper. That's cold storage. You know, that's one of the best options you could have for cold storage if you have a node or you're storing your Bitcoin in that way. And then you can put that in a safe or something like that. But most of the time, it's breaches in security at exchanges and stuff where people literally have access to files and therefore private keys, and then they steal your funds. You know, but once transactions have happened, they've happened. You know, if someone has access to your private key and makes a transaction, they can't do that. That's also something to consider if you own your own Bitcoin. Like most of us use Luno. You've got your Bitcoin stored on Luno. They actually have your private key. You don't have your private key. So in your own interest, if you really want to look after your funds properly, get your own private key, send your Bitcoin to your private key, then you have complete control. No one can do anything, because to be honest with you, if Luno is compromised and someone gets has access to all those private keys, they can steal your funds. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say some of the same things. It's important to make sure that you keep your own private keys. Make sure that there's a couple of different options that you can get that create wallets for you. The best wallet is, like Gareth says, a cold storage, but like offline wallet. You can create your own offline wallet if you go there. There's a paper wallet that stores your Bitcoin literally on paper that you can put in a safe. And these guys obviously recommend printing it on fireproof paper and all sorts of stuff. But like, it's that serious. But
Yeah.
people, I think also people are careless. They like, there was this hype, it's about Bitcoin, and people didn't understand that it's like your money, your bank account, and it can be hacked if you're careless. It's like leaving your PIN code written down on a piece of paper. I help people all the time with their internet and their email and all sorts of stuff, and the amount of people that write their passwords in the back of their diaries is ridiculous. And people to write their passwords down in the back of the diary, say to a Luno, without using something like two-factor authentication, you're asking for trouble. It's like people don't don't understand it. That's again one of the things, without punting it too much, but one of the things that we really want to try and do in SA Crypto is an education part of this to this as well. Trying to help people to understand things like use this app, use Google Authenticator to make sure that your two-factor authentication is enabled on your account before you log in. I know it sounds all very technical and this sort of stuff, but once you get into it, just make sure your account's secure. That's the key. Yeah.
Sorry, I want to add something. I know I shouldn't, but I will. Just to say, we're so early in the space. The reality is many of us here don't know how the HTTP protocol of the internet works when you access a website. There's so many things that we just don't understand how they work. Your 4G GSM transmitters inside your phone, we don't understand how these things work, we just use them. And I think there's so much development yet to come. And at the moment it's hold your own private keys, hold your funds securely, and it requires a bit of technical knowledge. But in time, and my encouragement is to developers here, be working on stuff to come that is going to make cryptocurrency transactions easier and safer. And the people that develop on this technology now are going to be the next Mark Zuckerbergs, the next Jeff Bezos, the people who see the opportunity. So I personally don't think we are going to be writing down our private keys on paper in the future. I think it's going to be a lot easier than that, because really secure technology has been built upon the technology of these blockchain protocols.
Who's next?
Just by show of hands, who does have a question? So we've got a few. Okay, let's see how we go. Okay, cool. I know you guys are from Hilton, right? Yeah, so we've got to give Hilton a chance. Okay, yes.
Hi everyone. I met a guy called Daniel Visa from CSIR, and he told me that there's more to blockchain than just cryptocurrencies. I just want to know at that part, what can you do with blockchain technology other than cryptocurrencies?
Forgive me, I'm not answer first because I was in my talk, but I cut it out. I'll tell you what, I'll do another talk here at the SEX next week. Give it the second half of my talk, but 100%. So Ethereum is in essence, so that guy Vitalik Buterin, he calls Ethereum a supercomputer. So in essence, what people are doing is they're tapping into 1 million computers, or a couple of thousand, in reality, a couple of thousand computers all supporting the network, and you can access its computing power. So that's not just transactions, you're actually accessing computing power. So the blockchain enables you to access computing power. There's talk of people who don't have really supercomputers to run great games. You can actually rent computing power to run a good game on your cheaper computer. But obviously that'll depend on internet speeds and things like that. Then there's a whole bunch of stuff that can be stored in the blockchain. Just this week, Walmart, which is the biggest company in the world, Apple, Amazon are not the biggest companies in the world by revenue. By revenue, Walmart is the biggest company in the world. They released a letter to all their suppliers of leafy greens, saying
It was Remain letters, James.
Sorry?
Remain letters.
Remain
It was
letters.
not only, not all.
No, Remain letters. Let me correct you now.
Okay, do it.
Dad voice coming. Romaine lettuce was what caused the E. coli outbreak,
Okay.
but they wrote a letter to all their leafy green suppliers.
All of them.
Not just the lettuce suppliers.
Okay.
All their leafy green suppliers saying you will be running on blockchain technology within a year.
I'll take it this time.
So go to sacrypto.co.za. I wrote an article on that. There's a link to the actual letter from Walmart to their suppliers. So they are putting, at the moment, so the E. coli outbreak, sorry, geez, here we go, talking James. But the E. coli outbreak happened a couple of months ago. It was taking 7 days to find out the supply chain of the letters and where the E. coli came from. They realized that if they had all that information on the blockchain, so every time the lettuce goes from the farm to the truck, from the truck to the fridge, that all gets put on the blockchain. Every tick, every entrance point goes on the blockchain. They'd done that, it was taking 2.2 seconds to find out the exact source. 7 days versus 2 seconds. So Walmart were like, stuff this, we're going on the blockchain. So that's one way. So there's a whole bunch of things. Every industry can go to the blockchain. The only thing holding us back is computing power and internet speeds at the moment.
Okay, who's next?
Hi guys. I just have a question about, in the South African context, the tax implications. At what point are you supposed to, do you have to declare when you, just every year, or was it when you're taking that money out of Uno? Especially considering you could have invested in Uno, moved it to Binance, invested in other things. How are we supposed to declare?
I'll answer this one quickly. You are in the same way when you earn cash, you've got to treat it like cash. You have to declare it to SARS. So SARS are trusting you to declare it. That's what it is. And if you need to declare what you've invested, what you've gained, if you've made losses, things like that. If you trade that cryptocurrency. So if you invested in Bitcoin and don't touch it, you don't have to declare it until you move it again. And you can declare your loss or profit. But if you do touch it, you do need to declare it, but SARS are trusting you. That's an easy, short answer for that.
Okay, next.
Should we do one more question?
One more, nice one.
Two more, and then we can go at the end.
Hi guys. In the event of trading an altcoin that might perhaps be pumping, like we've recently seen with Ripple, for example, where it's seems to be climbing from, I don't know, was trading at about 33 cents and it's pushed up to around 60, 70 US cents recently. In the event of us normal people trading a coin like that, when it dumps, is it possible to trade out a large quantity without having an automatic trading bot to front run you and to prevent your trade from executing?
Yeah, not actually sure. Yeah.
I think the best people to ask, I'm going to ask you to go straight to a fund call. Those three guys over there run a company called Avancore. I call them the best blockchain developers in the province of North South Africa, and they know a lot about bots and algorithmic trading. They will help you. Go straight to one of those guys, they will be able to answer that question. Okay, last one from
Last question.
Cool.
Hi guys. So my question is just regarding South Africa, particularly the African continent. So I've been very fortunate enough to have lived in the US for the past 2.5 years. So I've taken blockchain and crypto seriously since the end of 2015. Obviously seeing a lot of, as far as mining is concerned, mining in northern parts of New York, upstate New York, Iceland, and some of the facilities out in Las Vegas. My question is just, for the average South African, knowing how South Africa is in comparison to the US standards, being how expensive things are right now in terms of rand value, is there, or would there be, in your personal opinion, like an opportunity for people to get involved as mining is concerned because of how expensive it is going forward? Obviously, even in the US, I've talked to many guys in the US about how expensive it's getting, even for them in dollar value. So as far as South Africa is concerned, or even Africa, where they expect or foresee mining throughout the African continent, if it's possible for average people to get involved with that.
I'm sure there are a few of us in this room that have gotten involved in mining, and it's bitten us pretty bad. I would say in a South African context at the moment it's not going well. The man at the back would probably be able to tell you a lot better in terms of the South African context how well you can do. At the moment it's just about breaking even with the cost of electricity and everything like that. I think the rest of Africa is probably pretty slow on the uptick. A lot of it would have to do with import costs, electricity costs and that sort of thing. And how open those countries are to sort of allowing that to happen and giving you the best prices, like industrial rates of electricity and that sort of thing. Doing it at home is pretty hard, eh? A few of us are doing it, and it's really, really hard to break even. And you've spent a whole lot of capital on the equipment, and then obviously the running costs. It's difficult. So I think a lot of people got excited about it in the last 6 months and the last year, and it was probably the same in the States. And people that got in then probably did really, really well. But obviously things have gotten progressively worse, and some of your equipment might not be doing as well as you had initially calculated it to do profitability-wise. So I think it's pretty difficult at the moment, and I can't give you a good answer to when things will turn up. It really has to do with the price of Bitcoin and how many people are actually mining. That said, hash rates are up, like they just continue going up and up. More people are mining. So I mean, they're trying to suggest to you, like, what's really going on? How much money are people making in different parts of the world? South Africa and Africa, I don't think a lot of people are making too much money unless you have a large-scale operation.
Yeah, just to add to that, we need to also remember that mining specifically is not just Bitcoin mining. There's plenty, you can mine a whole bunch of other coins as well. And those might be profitable. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but we got a mining WhatsApp group that's actually very active and some very clever guys on there. So if you guys want, if we're around mining, just go to our website and join the group from there. Really interesting and active group as well. So that's it.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. I just want to say thanks to everybody for attending tonight. Again, Durban is one of those crowds that we love. We love. And we really want to grow this community, and this is our home, and that's why we're so passionate about making these events work here. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for coming out tonight. Stick around, there's some beers, some wine, gin and tonics there, and have a chat if you guys have any questions.